MCC 10, woo! The event just hit double digits and Noxcrew is celebrating by having 2 MCCs in the same month. That means I've got to get this analysis out double speed, so here we go. Also, I took a lot of ideas and suggestions from the comments of the last video, and I'm also adding in a bunch of new facts and statistics that I think you guys might find interesting, which meant that this video took much more time than usual, and is also quite a bit longer. That said, if you like the video, please just check that you're subscribed to the channel. There's a statistically, get it because it's stats video, anyway, high chance that you aren't subscribed, and it would really help me if you subscribed. This video isn't going to be split into 2 segments like the last 2, oh no. This video has a whopping 4 segments, all of which I think you'll enjoy. Let's start off with the objective analysis. Take into note, for the objective analysis I merely present statistics, whereas for the subjective analysis I give my opinions as well as observations that aren't absolutely solid or 100% fact. I'll display this on screen whenever a segment or statement is subjective, and will explain the other segments when I get to them. Let's get on with it then. Alright, let's get started. In last place we have the Sapphire Simmers. Not that much of a surprise really, the Simmers have played in almost every MCC for fun, and don't play Minecraft that regularly at all. They're in last place by quite a considerable margin, and there's not much to say except for the fact that they haven't played in any recent events, so they may face some difficulty what with all the changes and the new game modes. Next up, we have the Yellow Yaks. This team comes in this low statistically because of fairly mediocre scores from Burn, Krinios, and Michael McChill. Though Tapple pops off in quite a few games, he can't really pull the team up to the levels that the others are on, and especially since his skill is confined to PvP games and Parkour Warrior, in a lot of them, his high scores are also cancelled out. For example, both Burn and Michael in Sands of Time got sub 200 scores, which cancelled out with Tapple's 400 plus score, leaving the team average in around the 300s to 200s. The team is, however, fairly consistent, and even though they can do just average or below average, they consistently perform to this standard, which can sometimes be more beneficial to a team than being sporadically amazing. The next team we have are the Orange Ocelots. This team at first glance seems like a winning team. The stats disagree, however, and the main reason is that in every game there's at least one extremely low score. For example, Sands of Time, you can see that Pete, False, and Joel all have quite good if not great scores. Cubfans 59, however, drags the team down to below average in this game. The reasons for this, in turn, are numerous. First off, Cub has only ever played as part of a Hermitcraft team who only played for fun, and therefore has understandably low scores. In addition to this, even though False Symmetry popped off in MCC 9, even winning it with her team, her averages were not affected in the games which were not played. This meant that her previous for fun scores carried over in quite a few games. The Green Guardians are up next in 5th. This team, consisting of S-Major, Quig, LD Shadow Lady, and Shovel, is a fairly well-rounded team as well. The main reason it places this low though is because of LD Shadow Lady. I'm not sure whether Lizzie played for fun or not in the past, but either way her scores are extremely low compared to the rest of the team. This is, however, a great time to talk about averaging. Now, on my previous video, someone suggested that I use the entire event averages for scores that I can't input, and that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier, so I implemented it into this spreadsheet. This makes averaging a weirdly double-edged sword. I think from Lizzie's parkour scores in comparison to the rest of her teams, that it's fair to assume that she would have gotten less than the rest of them in Ace Race. However, instead of getting this hypothetical lower score, since Lizzie hasn't ever played Ace Race, she becomes an average of every other player in the event, which boosts her score massively. This can also have the opposite effect, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about the averaging, so yeah. One of the most controversial teams is up next, the Aqua Axolotls. This team comes in at 4th, and it's an interesting team for more than one reason. First off, there's the obvious Tommy Pokimane dynamic, but that's a subjective analysis thing. Apart from that, there's the fact that Poki is an average for every single game, which definitely pumps up her score more than it would be naturally. And the last thing to note here is Tubbo. Having only played one MCC, he's a bit of a wild card. Granted, he's a great player, but he popped off in MCC 9, and therefore it's possible that his scores will swing down from what they currently are. Apart from these things, the reason this team is in 4th is because they are pretty middling. None of them have any insane scores, and though they're all decent players, players like Tommy and Tubbo have only just recently started to pop off sporadically in certain tournaments, and therefore it hasn't had much of an impact on their overall average. First up on the MCC 10 stats podium, we have the Red Rabbits. This team is very similar to the Orange Ocelots in terms of makeup. You have Dream acting like Pete did, though to a lesser extent due to his lower scores in most games. The reason that the rabbits are so much higher than the ocelots is because the rest of the team, on average, performed much better than the rest of the ocelots did. This team also has barely any low scores and is therefore in with such a high position. It's also interesting to note that this team's Sky Battle scores were above average all around. Since it's only ever been played once, the scores are extremely disproportionate, as having a bad day during MCC 9 could have messed with some other teams, which might have otherwise been able to score higher in Sky Battle and compete with the Red Rabbits. The Rabbits performing well thus gave them advantage, which put them in 3rd place. Just narrowly missing out on 1st place, we have the Cyan Creepers. Interestingly, one could say this team follows the same formula as the Rabbits and the Ocelots, but instead of having 2 teammates with lower scores dragging the other 2 down, there's only one. Sapnap, having only played in 3 MCCs before, has a lot more to gain when popping off in an event, and pop off he has done in both MCC 9 and MCC 8. That, combined with Captain Sparkle's acing most of the movement-based events on the regular thanks to the practice, was more than enough to cancel out Sylvie's low scores and propel this team into 2nd. It's also worth noting that Sapnap carried the team to a higher average than most single-handedly in a lot of games, for example Sky Battle, Parkour Warrior, or Battlebox. And finally, in 1st place, we have the Lime Llamas. Now before I go on here, I just want to say, it's getting kind of ridiculous that in every single analysis I've made so far, Technoblade's team has come out on top statistically, and yeah, I just wanted to point that out, and point out that pattern and say that it isn't deliberate or skewed, it's just plain weird. Anyway, the reason this team is so good is for 2 reasons. 1. Techno, Philza, and Erit are all extremely good players. Phil has been improving his MCC average massively over the past few events, except for MCC 9 where he had a sort of bad one, and this gradual increase has almost got him to the level of players like Quig or Techno, both of whom are S tier players. Combine this with Techno also being on the same team and you've got an assured top 5 team. The team does it so incredibly well, however, for 2 more reasons. 1. Erit, even though he hasn't been doing so hot in more recent tournaments, did really consistently well in the earlier ones, which stops him from being a deadweight on the team and instead makes him a player who can carry his own weight and more if need be. The last factor is that Nihachu is an average. As you probably know, Nihachu hasn't played in MCC before. What this means is that she's an average, which saves this team from being similar to the Cyan Creepers, since Nikki would generally not perform as well as the averages dictate and might have dragged the team's score down. In editing, I've just seen that Nikki is picking up stuff really quick, so I could be selling her way short here, so keep that in mind. This isn't the case though, and the Lime Llamas take the number 1 spots for stats in MCC 10. Now, let's move on to subjective. Whoa there, Buckaroo, don't you remember? 4 segments, time for a change of pace. So let's get into some quickfire team stats. First off, I compiled all the games that were picked in previous MCCs and found out which were the most statistically likely to be picked. Then, based on those, I found the team unmultiplied averages to give what I think could be a fairer version of the stats. Let me know in the comments, however. Either way, this didn't change positions 1, 2, or 3. 4 to 6 got all mixed up, however, with the 4th place Axolotls dropping to 5th, the 5th place Guardians dropping to 6th, and the 6th place Ocelots rocketing up to 4th. Let's get this going quicker. Best teams for movement are the Lime Llamas in 1st, the Orange Ocelots in 2nd, and the Red Rabbits in 3rd. Techno, Dream, and Pete's teams all get the top 3 spots, with the Cyan Creepers falling behind surprisingly. Next, best teams for PvP. In 1st place, the Lime Llamas again. 2nd are the Cyan Creepers, and in 3rd we have the Red Rabbits. No surprises, Techno, Dream, and Sapnap all had strong teams to back up their individual PvP scores, which propelled them all the way to the front. Woo, 2nd segment done. Now, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps me out a ton, and also leave me a comment letting me know what you think of these new segments. They take quite a bit of time to do, so are they bogging down the video? Do they add to it? Let me know, and on to the subjective analysis. Right, let's get started then. Whack that subjective sign up there in the corner, and we'll start off with the Sapphire Simmers. Not much to say about these guys, they've only all ever played as a team, so there'll be no problems with chemistry there. Again, this team plays for fun, so unless they've suddenly become serious and started practicing hard since the last event, they won't really move in their placement of last. Next up, let's talk Cyan Creepers. This team again looks like it'll have good chemistry. Sapnap and Sylvie have both teamed before, as have Kara and Captain Sparkles. And all of them are known to try and win more than play for fun. In addition to this, Captain Sparkles and Sapnap are both natural leaders for their teams, however they both tend to only step up to the leadership role when necessary, which could lead to either a great duo leader dynamic developing between the two, or could lead to clashes and conflicting interests as they both like to lead in separate ways. There's not really a way for me to tell which of these will happen, however, so let's move on. Let's discuss the Yellow Yaks next. This team won't have any chemistry issues either in my opinion. Burn and Michael have shown that as a duo they gel well with almost any team type, and there's also been quite a lot of hype surrounding the pairings of Krinios and Burn and also that of Tapple and Michael, or at least that's what Twitter seems to suggest. Either way, I don't see this team having chemistry issues and I can see Tapple taking the role of leader for the team. The Green Guardians are up next with arguably some of the best chemistry in the event. This team, minus LD Shadow Lady and plus CPK, won MCC5 and therefore you can't say that they'll have bad chemistry. Apart from that, it's also fair to assume that Lizzie or LD Shadow Lady will have great chemistry with all of the other Guardians as they're all members of the X-Life SMP and therefore will probably already have a rapport built up. Next, the Red Rabbits. Dream, George, Solidarity and Puffy is a team I can see running into some roadblocks. Although the chemistry between Dream and George is undeniable, Jimmy, or Solidarity, has played in mostly for fun teams in the past, and Jimmy's happy with 8th attitude might conflict with the rest of the team, all of whom have been on much more serious teams in the past. If they can get past this however, I don't see that much of an issue. Jimmy is a great support player, Puffy and George can also hold their own in most situations, and Dream will probably take charge as team leader. Now, onto the Whopper. The Aqua Axolotls. Talking about this team is sorta scary for me, because it's extremely controversial, but here goes. It's not a stretch at all to assume that this team may throw for content, given that Pokimane is in it, who will probably never appear in MCC again. If they are serious, though, chemistry probably won't be that much of an issue, though it may rear its head once or twice, as none of the other players have played with Pokimane before, and may need to get to know her playstyle during the event. However, a lot of people are speculating that Tommy will annoy Pokimane and this will lead to problems, and quite frankly I disagree. Tommy is annoying for the bit and in high pressure situations is rarely a bad teammate to people he isn't familiar with. There may be a few jabs or bits played out during the event, but I highly doubt that it'll actually affect the Axolotls as a team, because again, it'll probably all be a bit. Let's talk Orange Ocelots. This team will probably have a similar problem to the Red Rabbits in terms of chemistry, given that Cubfan has only played on for fun teams before. However, I don't see it posing that much of a problem for this team as both False Symmetry and Smallish Beans have experience with serious and for fun teams and therefore will be able to help Cub adapt to the serious team mindset quicker than he might have otherwise. Pete is also a great leader for quieter players and has really boosted all of the players on his team in the past, not only with confidence that they're on the same team as the best MCC player, but also because he gives them tips and tricks to improve their performance. Now, time for the Lime Llamas. This team wins statistically and it also holds up pretty well in the chemistry area. All the members of the Llamas are either part of SBI or closely associated with that group, which means that they've already probably built up a rapport off camera. Nikki and Eret will both also be great support players, as Eret has shown this in the past and Nikki is known for her wholesomeness. I don't think there's any question of leadership for this team either, and Techno will probably lead the team and further the dynamic he built with Phil in previous championships and in Minecraft Monday. Now, this is usually the part of the video where I would give you my predictions and sign off, but not this time. We still have one segment left before our predictions, so let's get straight into individual player stats and facts. Again, this is going to be a quickfire segment. The best players PvP wise are Sapnap in first, Technoblade in second, and Tommy in third. Not much of a surprise, they're all great players, and with Sapnap excelling recently, his score has definitely shot up by a bit. The best players based on movement are in first Pizza Hut, second Quig, and in third Technoblade. These rankings were a little of a surprise to me as I expected Dream to place higher than Techno purely based on movement. However, he's in fourth while Techno edges him out by over 40 average points for third. The best player in terms of overall score is Pizza Hut in first, no surprises there, Sapnap in second, and Technoblade in third again. Fairly cut and dry, let's move on. Now, what I found interesting was this next statistic. Based on the games that are most likely to be picked, which I compiled earlier, the best players overall are the same top three, Pete, Sapnap, and Techno. But now Techno is in second, which seems to suggest that even though Sapnap is a better player overall, if the games are picked according to the pattern that they have been picked in the past, Techno will end up being a more valuable player. In the overall, Sapnap beat Techno by 42 points, but in this metric, Techno beats Sapnap by 12, which shows just how huge an impact the games picked can have. It's also important to note the game order is important too, because if a player's best game is picked first, they're dead in the water, whereas if it's picked last, they can come back from virtually anything. Alright, so that's all the segments done, now it's time for my own personal prediction once again. You may have noticed that I haven't mentioned the viewer teams throughout this entire video, and that's because they're a wildcard. It's almost 100% confirmed that the viewer teams won't be Sweats or Testers, as S Major has said this multiple times, so I had placed them in 6th and 7th respectively. In my opinion, the Lime Llamas win this competition on a normal day. However, Aqua and Orange both have extreme pop-off capability and will either place super high or super low, so I'd place them in 2nd and 3rd respectively. The Green Guardians will take a solid 4th in my opinion, and well, that's it. Those are the MCC 10 teams fully broken down, analysed and explained, along with my predictions. Who do you think will win MCC 10? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you really like this video, consider checking out my team's MCC 10 application, linked on the screen here. Anyway, this has been Animagician. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!